Hello guys, welcome to another weekly breakdown video. Today I am breaking down the last week or first week of May's data. And before starting my backtesting, let me show you the callouts. Even if your first zone doesn't work out, it still have a chance to give the move after sweeping that zone, like in this trade. Okay, so I will explain that why I've written that. Only prefer to trade the zones made in London and New York session because it's GBP USD, right? So London and New York have high probability of making the move. So whenever there is no order block to trade from, that is when we are getting continuation setups. Okay, and sometimes the best thing you can do in the market is just not trade. Yep, 100% agreed. Sometimes the best thing you can do is not trade, and not trading will literally give you a bias for the next days. So you avoided a loss and also higher your probability to win on the next days, right? Because now your because now your understanding is more clearer. So starting on the weekly without wasting any time. Okay, before doing it, let me quickly show you the news. And this was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, there was no news. Thursday there was news on GBP and New York both, and Friday was a news day like GDP and prelim. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday we can look for trades, and Thursday and Friday will be a little bit precautive. Yep, that's the word. And starting from the weekly without wasting any time, clearly we can see this is now the market is now the price is in a weekly supply zone right here. This supply zone is valid due to this change of character happened from here and from here, something like this. I've explained it on my previous videos, so you can watch that. So on the weekly, all I do is watch for zones, targets, and bias. So my weekly bias going on the next week on GU is looking like it's bearish, right? Because of how that candle closed. And when I go to DXY to confirm my bias, what I see is, bro, even DXY was going down. What the hell? Both DXY and GU are going down. So whenever both of the pairs or currencies are doing the same sort of thing, that's very tricky to trade. So the weekly bias was not clear as both were bearish, and on DXY it was more bearish than GU. So obviously I was relying on GU bullish rather than, and also I have, whenever GU and DXY doesn't align, that is when I go to EU to confirm my bias, which was kind of heading more towards bullish side, right? So that is when I decided my bias being bullish on GBP USD. But obviously the bias was not clear on the weekly. That is when I trade the daily bias. So I was looking for trades from the daily bias. On Monday I was looking for sells, and Monday I was looking for some sort of sells, and on DXY I was looking for some sort of buys on Monday. Because of this fair value gap right here, you can see it got filled to the T, and now it's rejecting, right? And also Monday there was no news, so I was looking for some sort of sells on Monday. That is when I went to the lower time frames like the H4, and on the H4 what we can see is this is the low that caused this new higher high. So the market was clearly bullish, right? Bullish, which caused that change of character. So it was a strong zone to trade from, but I was looking for sales. So what I need supply zone. So this is also one thing. The 4 hour didn't change character to the downside, so trading Monday was very low probability, and also the zone was not clear. So what I did, sometimes this is the reason why I wrote this right here. Sometimes the best thing you can do is not trade. I've written that. Sometimes the best thing you can do in the market is just not trade and wait for the bias to get clear, and wait for it to give you a bias, right? So that is why I've written. Now I can delete that because we've learned from it, right? So Monday I didn't do the trade because the bias was not clear. So Monday did something like a bullish kind of candle, and yeah, I went to DXY. On DXY Monday did nothing, bro. Monday was a doji, and it's clearly showing that now whenever I have seen a candle like this after a huge bearish push like this, a doji, me personally, with my personal experience, I have seen a bullish candle from there, because now it's showing that the sellers have lost momentum. As you can see, the buyers are kicking in the market on DXY, and might be that's the start of the down up move, right? So next day can be bullish on the DXY. So I was looking for sells on GBP USD. So I believe I didn't trade it Tuesday, did I? Let me see. So even now the 4 hourly is still bullish, so it is very low probability. This week was low probability because of the 4 hourly, because it was just bullish, and anything happens here will be build up of liquidity for me. Yeah, you can argue that there was a H1 supply zone, lower highs, lower lows. There was also no clear H1 supply zones, because also the H1 was trading from this high to this low from Friday because of high impact news. But on Tuesday I was looking for some sort of sells, which happened from this M15 fair value gap. And if I'm selling, obviously I was targeting the previous day low, which I have not marked yet. Marked here because obviously I have already taken that. And also what we know one more thing, right? This was a loss. This was a continuation trade loss on Tuesday. It was a low probability trade. Just by the technical analysis, I could say this was a low probability week to trade. Lower highs, lower lows. Lower highs, the fair value gap didn't got swept to the T. There was still some sort of fair value gap left, right? So whenever I have seen in the market that there is some fair value gaps still left to fill, what I have seen is the market come back, fill up the fair value gap, and then make the move. So that's what exactly happened. My first fair value gap trade didn't play out, but after sweeping all of this liquidity, and the idea was not wrong. You can see the idea was correct. We did got our trade, but our timing. Whenever there is fair value gap left to fill, don't trade. While taking continuation setups, if the price has not swept the fair value gap completely, that's a low probability trade. Yes, it might play out. Always there is a chance, but obviously you want to put the probabilities in your favor. So I personally would not have taken this trade, because yeah, but after sweeping our liquidity, our supply zone, we have also learned one more thing, that whenever our supply zone doesn't get respected, this liquidity can get swept, and the move can happen from the next supply zone or next demand zone. So a lot of things to get learn from this week. And now going on Wednesday, just because we waited for Monday and Tuesday to play out, if we had waited for Monday and Tuesday to play out, clearly we can see it's also following a weekly profiling bearish candle. First went up Monday, made the high of the week, might be now continuing to the downside, right? Which gave us extra confirmation. And now going on Wednesday, I'm looking for sells. To confirm this, I went to DXY, and even DXY was giving a pure bullish candle. As you can see, it filled up a small fair value gap here. I didn't mark it, but I can see, and after filling it, it didn't give any rejection. So I was looking for buys on DXY, which will be sells on GU. So I went to lower time frames to mark my zones to see any change of characters. The 4 hour didn't make any progress. It was still trading between these lows and these highs, so it was very tricky. So just by seeing this move, I was literally, that's a red flag for me to trade. But the hourly did give us the change of character right here, lower highs, lower lows, but also we have to wait for the Asian range. I was looking for sells, waited for the Asian range, but ask yourself, does it make sense to go all the way up to this supply that the hourly has made and come down? No, for me it doesn't. So I was looking for trades, I believe, from this sort of supply. First I was looking for this sort of supply, but this supply was not made in our session. So also we only slash most of the times we trade the zones that are made on London or New York session. But this was made on Sydney session, which we don't trade, and this was also a continuation setup. On Wednesday. Boom, the market went down. The same sort of thing happened again, what I've explained just before this trade. What happened was the fair value gap got filled. The supply zone, the first supply zone didn't get respected, so was used as liquidity. The second supply zone also was not respected and used as liquidity. After that, what did the market do? This was a very tricky trade to catch, to be honest. If I was looking for any sort of trades here, I'm guessing that I would have lost it. Also on the hourly, we can clearly see this liquidity has been swept here, and even after sweeping so much of liquidity, what did the price do? It gave us inducement. After the inducement, this was a beautiful M15 rejection, and then we entered for a 1:3 risk to reward. So on Thursday, we entered a sell position right here. So what I'm noticing while I'm backtesting, right, my idea is not wrong. Idea is 8 out of 10 8 out of 10 times is correct. If I'm looking for sales, the market is going down, all we have to master is the timing when we are entering the market. If we can master that, bro, that is when we'll start to see results. Liquidity sweep, external liquidity sweep, inducement, and then a beautiful M15 rejection. That's what we want to see every single time in the trade, right? So on Thursday it was a win. On Wednesday it was a winning day, you can argue, or it was a very tricky day. Also, this week was very tricky to trade as the bias is not clear. So now going on Thursday, on Wednesday I was looking for sells. Now on Thursday I'm looking for buys again. Why? Obviously because we adapt to the market, we don't predict. So on Thursday I was looking to fill up this fair value gap on the daily time frame on GU, whereas the fair value gap on DXY to the downside, right, which was obviously not aligning with the weekly bias, but we still took it because we are backtesting. So if I'm looking for buys, a bullish change of character or break of structure would be nice. And as you can see, the market is still trading between this low and this high, and this was just a wick. So wick, we don't count wicks. So yeah, on the 4 hourly, still now no progress. And on the hourly there was a change of character right here. So I was looking forward to trade from this demand zone right here. Right, on Thursday I was looking for buys from this demand zone. The same thing happened again. You know what, I was looking for buys, it was a losing day again. This was an overall losing week, and on Thursday I took this trade. I even journaled this trade right here. If you wanna know something about it, learn more about it. Asian low liquidity sweep, previous structural liquidity sweep, H1 demand mitigation. But you know what, the only mistake in this trade was not a mistake. Obviously it's probabilities playing out, but what did the market do was swept our demand zone that I've marked, and after sweeping that, it gave the move that we are looking from the next demand zone, the demand zone below the demand zone that I've marked. So the idea was still correct, as you can see, but the move did happen from the demand zone below the zone. So we only want to trade with whenever the bias is clear and whenever everything is in our favor. So this was a losing trade on Thursday. I have journaled it, so got to learn a lot of things. Got to learn a lot of things on Thursday. And now going on Friday, my bias, still a small fair value gap left, I believe. Yes, on Friday is still a small fair value gap left to fill, so we will target that to fill up that fair value gap. And on DXY there was a bearish candle, as you can see, on Thursday. So Friday I'm looking forward to sell again. My bias is changing like anything, as you can see. One day I'm looking for buys, the another day I'm looking for sells. That is what you don't want to do on the live markets. You only want to stick with one bias, with your weekly bias if it's clear, and you want to put the probabilities as much as possible in your favor. That is when you will start winning more. So this low is still yet not taken, as you can see. So because of this low and this high on the 4 hourly, this week was very tricky. And yeah, going on Friday there was also news. Oh sorry, I forgot to show you the news, I guess. No, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday there was no news. I've already told you in the start of the video. On Thursday there was also no news at our timing that I trade, so it was not that of a high impact to look at it like that. But on Friday there was a high impact news at our timing when we trade, GDP news, and obviously it will affect the markets. So on Friday I was very cautious taking the trade, and if I'm looking for something it will be buys, correct. So obviously waited for the Asian range to close. After Asian range close, I was looking for some sort of demand zone, some sort of this M15 demand zone, but news came in GBP's favor and literally market shoot up to the upside like anything. And now let's go to the M15. The previous day high was swept very early on. The fair value gap on the M15 here got filled to the T. This is our setup, right? Higher high, market came down to this demand mitigation, boom, made our move. Exactly that happens, as you can see. Higher high, higher low, lots of inducement, came back to our demand zone, boom, made the move, and then came down again. came down to my marked M15 demand. This was the M15 demand that I've marked. Because of the change of character right here, I've not marked it. There was also a fair value gap, small fair value gap, and if we had taken this trade, which was a New York session trade, I would have capitalized on my 1:3, and yeah, it was a winning day on Friday. Even though the news comes out in your favor and it starts to go to the upside, and you are getting a trade in New York session in your zone, the most important thing is if the trade is in my zone or not. Whatever happens before that matters, but only matters for a limit. So it was a trade that could have been taken. So I have also journaled this trade by making this video, and next time if something like this happens in the live market, obviously I will remember this trade and look at it. So yeah, this week was a roller coaster week. As you can see, it was not clear due to that 4 hourly highs and lows, but even though we traded and we caught some losses, we caught some wins, and that's what trading is. And the weekly candle at the end of the week closed as a doji, so trading the next week will be tricky, as you can see, but we will do it anyways. So